Okay, so now let's get more into the nitty-gritty of how this is going to be completed. You're reading this program description, and we have monsters, we have the hero, we have weapons, we have potions, we have yeah, I think that's about it. Oh no, I think there's armor, right? And so the way that I want you to set this up is that each of these things that are going to be in the game are going to be objects, right? So you'll have a weapon object, you'll have a monster object, right? Because what are these objects? Objects are just collections of variables, right? So the monster needs an x and y, like every object in the game needs an x and a y position. That's two different variables, right? Just that alone justifies the fact that they are objects, right? That each of them should be an object. But you know, the monster also has attack. He might have armor. He might have, you know, if you're scaling up, we're not going to do that at the moment, but he, you know, he might have armor. He might have speed. He might have all these other different characteristics, along with the hero. The weapon, you might think, oh, that could just be an instance variable, right? That has an attack, like an attack value. But and that would work for this game, but we are going to scale it up, right? And if you were going to scale this up, then, you know, the weapon might have a weight, right? And the weight might have might have an influence on how often the hero can attack, right? Or the weapon might have a range, right? So let's go ahead and make a weapon object or a weapon class, right? And you'll have an attack instance variable, which you'll set here for the dagger, right? Maybe a range, a low range and a high range for the dagger, which will be low at 10 and high at 30. Yeah, and you'll have a farmer object as well, right? Or a farmer class. Later on, we're going to learn about inheritance, and you know, we can go ahead and factor out common instance variables, right, and make them a superclass, right? So we can have a character class of which hero is a character, right, and monster is a character, farmer is a character. But you know, we haven't gotten there yet, so we're going to make different classes for each of these guys. And yeah, and so when we're putting this together, how are you going to make the map, right? Well, what we can do, one way to do it is to have a 2D array, right? So what is a 2D array? Well, we have an array of columns, and we have an array of rows, right? Where it's basically where you have an array, and every element in the array is another array. Right, so that's one way you could do it. And then what's another way you could do it? We could do the same method as the bank account, where we had a array list, where each entry or each element in the array list is an array list. Right, that would basically look the same as what we have here. I would suggest, since the map is defined as being 10 by 10, right, it's not going to grow or shrink, I suggest doing the 2D array method. And yeah, so if you look down here at the bottom, right, map has been generated, right? We've created the 2D array, and when you create it, everything is set to null, right? All the elements are initialized to null, so all these guys will be equal to null. And the enemies have been placed. That means the enemies have been created, right? So you made the monsters, and then you randomly set their x and y locations, and then based on their x and y locations, you place them into the 2D array, right? So we have like monster here. Right. Hero is going to be down here, so that would be like column 0, row 10, or something along those lines, row 9, right? And that would be hard-coded in the constructor of the hero. And then you would place your item objects, you know, here, here, here. Now the question here comes up, is like, okay, well, how do I put all these objects into a 2D array, right? Well, there's different ways you can do this. You can have those objects just sitting on the side, and you could fill this array, have this array be a character array, right? And you could put the letter H in here, the letter M here, the letter, you know, farmer F1 here, right? And so on. And you could use that one level of abstraction to help you out when you're navigating through the map, to tell whether you've met a monster, or you encountered the sword, or you've picked up a potion, or something along those lines, right? The more straightforward way, in my mind's eye, would be to just put the objects right into the 2D array, right? And how would you do that? Well, the way that that would go is something like this. Okay, so you're making your 2D map, your 2D array map, and you'll make it of type object. Okay, and so we haven't learned about this yet, but there are inheritance. There's like an inheritance structure, and object is the superclass of every object, every class in Java, right? So if we go ahead and make this map of type object, then we can put any kind of object into it, right? We could put a hero in there, we could put a monster in there, we could put a weapon in there, we could put whatever we want, because object is the superclass. Okay, yeah, I don't want to get into that too much, but if you do that, you're able to put them in there, right? And what I suggest you also do is create a print map method, right? Because every time you make a move or every time there's a change on the map, you want to print the map, right? So that you can like show visually what the user's dealing with. And that's pretty simple, right? You say for map.length, and then inside you do another nested for loop, and you say map sub0.length, right? So this one is going to go through the columns, this one's going to go through the rows, and then you're printing out the state of the map, right? Yeah, so this is like a really simple version of what you guys are doing, right? Or will be doing. I mean, monster I have here, just the constructor, but you are probably going to have to put random numbers in here for the x and the y when you construct the monster, right? Random numbers in there for the low and the high, I think, on his possible attack, and so on. So yeah, I'll go ahead and compile this, and then I'll run it. And here we go, right? So this is what we get. We get all these nulls. I put the hero right in here, put the monster right in here. You could see them, right? So this looks pretty ugly. You can make it look pretty, but yeah, that's kind of what we're going to be doing and how you're going to get started, okay? Where you make a 2D array of objects. And then when you go ahead and have this, like, you know, him moving around, like the hero moving around, you can have kind of like a while loop in here, right? That's going to go forever, while true. Right, you'll do stuff, right, where you're like taking the input where he wants to move, and you'll move him, you'll change his x and y position, right, his x and y instance variable, and after you change his x and y instance variable, you need to adjust the map, right? You need to adjust the map so that he's no longer at that location. He's now in like the neighboring location, depending on what he entered in on the keyboard. Okay, so what was my point? Okay, so my point is like, now you want to tell, like, am I standing next to a townsman, or am I standing next to a hero, or I mean next to a monster, right? And how do you do that? Well, what you can do is you could say instance of, okay? So you can say like if A is, well, let me see. So we're gonna do this right here, right? Because I guess the first thing you want to tell if you're the hero is like, am I standing next to a monster after I moved, right? So you need to check the guys that are next to him, all around him, right? And you got to check, are they not equal to null? Okay, if they're not equal to null, then that means there's something there. And if there's something there, then I need to check what is he, okay? So let's say this is the encountered object, right? You want to say if object is an instance of monster, right? If that's true, act accordingly, right? And not only do you need to act accordingly, but you need to typecast this object, right? This thing that you found as a monster, right? Because when we put him into the object or 2D array, he's now an object, right? He's like generic. He doesn't have the qualities available. He doesn't have all the methods and instance variables associated with monster. He only has the ones that are associated with object. So when you're here, you need to, in order to like interact with the monster, you need to typecast that object that you found as the type that he is. So if he is a monster, then yeah, typecast him as a monster here before moving on and doing whatever it is you're doing. So what you should have here is like if, right? If, else if, else if, else if. If object's a monster, typecast him as a monster. If object's a townsman, typecast him as a townsman. If he's a potion, typecast him as a potion before interacting with it, or else you won't have his instance variables to use, and you won't have his methods. So yeah, I think that'll get you guys started, and yeah, ask me any questions as they come up.